Which Nimzo-Indian variations did Kasparov prefer? Are you curious about which variations of the Nimzo-Indian defense Garry Kasparov favored during his illustrious chess career? Let's break it down. Kasparov had a clear preference for the variation that begins with the move for knight to f3. This line is now often referred to as the Kasparov variation. It arises after the moves one pawn to d4, knight to f6, pawn to c4, pawn to e6, knight to c3, and then knight to f3. Kasparov frequently employed this variation during his 1985 World Championship match against Anatoly Karpov. He used it multiple times with notable success, achieving wins and draws. The move knight to f3 is a flexible development, allowing white to wait and see how black responds. Black's most common replies in this variation include pawn to c5, pawn to d5, and pawn to b6. The move pawn to c5 is particularly important as it keeps the game within the Nimzo-Indian territory, often leading to complex positional play. After pawn to c5, white usually plays pawn to g3, aiming to fianchetto the bishop. This setup puts pressure on black's queen side. The main line continues with moves such as pawn takes d4, knight takes d4, castling kingside, and then pawn to d5. In this structure, black has exchanged some central pawns, but white's bishop on g2 exerts long-range pressure, especially on the queen side. White can follow up with moves like queen to b3 to increase that pressure. This variation is sometimes called the three knights variation due to white developing knights on c3, d4, and f3 early in the game. Kasparov's choice of the knight to f3 line reflects his strategic approach to the Nimzo-Indian defense. It combines solid development with dynamic possibilities. This variation allows white to maintain flexibility and adapt to black's setup, which suited Kasparov's style perfectly. In summary, Kasparov preferred the Nimzo-Indian variation, characterized by knight to f3, known as the Kasparov variation. He particularly focused on lines involving pawn to c5 and white's fianchetto with pawn to g3. This choice enabled him to navigate the Nimzo-Indian defense with a balance of positional understanding and tactical opportunities.